key vote in the state of Alaska represents the latest battle surrounding religious freedom. This is the Citizenlink report. I'm Carrie Earll with Citizenlink gender analyst Jeff Johnston. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Carrie.
Thanks for being with us today.
Sure, glad to.
We are talking about a vote in Anchorage, Alaska, Proposition 5, that would add sexual orientation and transgender identity to the city's non-discrimination code. Now, this election in Alaska really made it ground zero for the debate about extending protected status to gays, to transgendered individuals. What was the outcome of the election?
Well, you're right. The proposition got a lot of attention. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, they all had articles about it. And the proposition lost big time. 58% to 42% it was defeated. And it was largely defeated because there were groups that explained some of the problems with propositions like these.
Now, as we're looking at this, laws like this are popping up across the country, not just in Anchorage. And as this is happening, people are really sounding the alarm. These are public accommodations types of laws. What are the concerns with these specifically, with Prop 5 and with others?
Well, one of the big concerns is public accommodations, that ordinances like these require business owners to allow a man who thinks he's a woman to use the women's dressing room or the women's changing room or the women's bathroom, or a woman who thinks she's a man or is transitioning into becoming a man to use the opposite sex bathrooms. And such laws have already triggered complaints by customers and different people, so they create a lot of problems for businesses. The policies don't just affect businesses, though. They also affect schools. Just last month, in the city of Oxford in Ohio, a student who was born female but thinks she's a man filed a complaint against the university. She wanted to be a resident advisor in a dormitory, and so they put her in a women's dormitory. But she said, no, I believe I'm a man. I want to be a resident advisor in a men's dormitory. Puts the school in a no-win situation. There are also a lot of questionable, credible questions about whether laws like this are really needed. The mayor of Anchorage had vetoed an ordinance just like this 2 years ago, and he said there was no substantial evidence to show that the law was even needed.
So this is causing confusion in a lot of communities. You've got businesses, schools. It affects a lot of different people.
They're all affected by this.
They are by that.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the Anchorage vote, what's interesting is who was donating to try to pass this type of law in Anchorage. And the highest chunks of money, the biggest chunks of money, came from Planned Parenthood, came from Tim Gill, who is a gay activist and billionaire from Colorado, and came from the ACLU. So these are all proponents of this Prop 5 initiative in Alaska that's been defeated. They outspent the conservatives, the church folks that were fighting this, almost 5 to 1. They raised so much money, it was $1 per person of residents of Anchorage. Now that's high stakes when you look at what's coming to the table. These people raised a lot of money and they were set back in this election. Why so much money? What's at stake here?
Well, the strategy is to go town by town, city by city, state by state to pass ordinances like these, either through the legislative channels or through public initiatives like this. And you're right, they spent almost $350,000 to pass this proposition. Initiatives like this are usually presented as creating fairness or equal opportunity. But as the laws play out, they're used to undermine people of faith, freedom of religion, and free speech. A recent example of this is in Lexington, Kentucky. The city has what's called a fairness ordinance that includes gender identity and sexual orientation. Blaine Adamson owns a business that's called Hands-On Originals, and they make promotional products for different companies. He had given a bid to a group, and then later found out that this was the group that sponsors the Lexington Gay Pride Festival. And so he retracted his bid. And he actually went the extra step. He found another company that would print the t-shirts that they were looking for at the price he had quoted. So he had the winning bid, the lowest bid, and he found another company to produce it for him. They still filed a complaint against him. He's a Christian man who owns this company, and he didn't want to produce the t-shirts for this group because he's opposed to what they stand for. Now, here's the double standard. The executive director of the Rights Commission in Lexington said that a gay-owned company could refuse to print t-shirts for a Christian group, but a Christian-owned company could not refuse the homosexual organization. In fact, the executive director, he was asked, well, how are you going to decide how Christian they are, and who gets to decide this? Here's what he said. He said, a lot of our investigation is utilized in finding out how sincerely held somebody's religious beliefs are. And that may come into play with this Christian organization. How sincere are they with their religious conviction? So they get to decide how Christian you are. Commissions like this.
That's absolutely chilling. And in the Lexington example that you just gave of this T-shirt production company, among other things they do, it was owned by a Christian. He tried to be fair with this, but this is the type of law that was used to haul him before a human rights commission and challenge him with this. This is absolutely chilling.
And public businesses and government businesses that have done business with him in the past, they're now examining their relationship with him to decide whether or not they should continue, whether or not he discriminates against people. And there's a gay and lesbian group trying to boycott his business. So he could lose a lot of income for standing up for his faith.
You know, this is reminding me of the federal mandate through the health care law that is requiring people of faith to have to provide possible abortion-causing drugs and contraceptive and sterilization through their health care plans. And it's this feeling I have that the government and quasi-government agencies want to define my faith for me, and that's very concerning. Now, as people of faith, as Christians, how should we view these issues? The issue of sexual orientation, transgender identity. Most certainly we respect these people, they're made in God's image, but this is a tough one sometimes for Christians to be able to articulate what is the biblical worldview on these issues.
Well, sexual orientation, it's a nebulous term in a lot of ways, and it's very narrow. You're defining somebody by who or what they're attracted to sexually, and there's more to being human than that. Christians know that we're made in the image of God, and that's what defines us, not what you're attracted to sexually, not what your sexual desires are. And as for the whole issue of gender identity or transgender identity or gender variance, you'll hear these different terms used in these ordinances. The transgender movement believes that a biological man who thinks he's a woman can somehow transition into being a woman, even though his physical reality is that he's a male. They believe somehow that God made a mistake. He poured a female spirit into a male body. And that's just goes against Christian theology. It's actually an ancient heresy, a Gnostic heresy. And it places how you feel and think above this physical world and the physical reality we live in. We are made male or female in the image of God. And a man who hates his own body and wants to become a woman, he needs help to embrace who God made him to be as a man. He needs help embracing his God-given masculinity. And on the personal level, churches must reach out with love to these individuals. You know, I have known people over the years who lived as the other sex, some of them for years and years. And they came to Jesus, and Christ began to restore their true identity. He began the process, and it was painful and it was difficult, and they needed the church supporting them as they went through this difficult process. But we must approach these individuals with respect and love.
Absolutely, and it is an opportunity then for the gospel, the truth, the love, the gentleness to be proclaimed, but to do that in a culture at the same time that we have to say no to this because it does infringe on religious freedoms and other issues that are dear to us. So, well, thank you, Jeff. Thanks for explaining this to us, and congratulations to the folks in Anchorage, Alaska on their victory there. And thanks to all of you who reach out to us through email to let us know your thoughts and reactions to our broadcast. You can always communicate with us at mail@citizenlink.com. That's mail@citizenlink.com. And thanks also for continuing to join us in prayer as we pray for our nation, the protection of our religious freedoms. It is a precious legacy that we do want to hand off to the next generation. And remember, stand tall and be heard.